Hi folks, my name is Jim Worthen. The show is Worthen One. Before I get into telling you about the show and my wonderful guests, I got some hate mail in the last few weeks, and I thought I'd read it to you and let you know that there are haters out there. The first one is from the staff and management of Channel 17 and my producer Mike Nicholson, telling me that I've got to quit abusing them off the air, being a tyrant, and to pay more attention to them. The letter says, if you hope to do another 400 shows, you've got to go through a probation period, and we're putting you on probation for the next 3 years. Oh, and the PS is, if you pay your dues for the next 3 years, you'll be off probation. Now, this one really hurts. This is from, this one, it says, you get the greatest guests in your 400 shows. You've had so many wonderful people, and they have such a message for your audience. Your son, Josh. Oh, by the way, Dad, shut up. Hate mail. Hate mail. That was a little gutfelt introduction. The show is on Channel 17, Cox Cable on the South Coast. It's on Monday at 1 o'clock, Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and Friday at 7 o'clock. But there are 3 platforms. That's what they call it now, platforms. Mike Nicholson is going out right now on his Facebook page, and he welcomes people to get it and forward it to their friends. Channel 17 is TV Santa Barbara. You go to their website and you go to the demand side, and I won't tell any jokes about me being last, and you go all the way to the bottom to Worthen One, and you can watch the show. Also, you can go to YouTube, search Worthen One, and this show and all the others are there. The reason to tell you that is, for instance, we're going to talk today about Republican and nonpartisan candidates all over the county of Santa Barbara. And it'll even be enlightening to other Republican Central Committees, because our chairman, Bobbi McGinnis, has done an incredible job. And so you'll be surprised at the current results. There were 92, she'll correct me on all this, nonpartisan offices, from school boards to sanitation districts, city councils, and we, as we have in the past, reached out for people who are Republican or even more independent conservatives, and vetted them and made endorsements and offered to help them if they wanted our endorsement. And so we'll be going over those candidates with our chairman, Bobbi McGinnis.
Great. Thanks for having me, Jim.
How did you get into politics? I always ask where were you born and everything, but let's...
How did I get into politics? My husband joined the Central Committee as an alternate for Albert Mercado. He is the former chairman of the grand jury, and he joined the Central Committee as a regular member right after he finished his stint, probably somewhere around 2008, 2009. And he's our neighbor, and he asked Mike to join as an alternate. So my husband actually has been involved with politics longer than I have, because he was a member for over a year, maybe 2 years, and then all of a sudden I decided during the 2012 election that I wanted to do something to change the way the country, the direction of the country.
You're the lady I saw in assembly candidate, the actor, in his
Chris Mitchell.
Oh, in the congressional office, stuffing envelopes.
But I actually started before that helping. I helped with Mitt Romney's campaign in 2012. That's when I started. And Mike Stoker was our candidate at that time, I think, for the Senate. But and Abel Maldonado was running. Anyway, for me, it was my first experience. We had an office on State Street. I went and made phone calls. I have a little white dog who came with me. We walked precincts, and I just told myself, okay, I'm going to work a couple hours every day, just knocking on doors and calling people to get them to vote for our candidates. And after the election was over, then I was invited to come as a guest to the Central Committee. So I went with Albert and Mike. And then, lo and behold, you called and asked me to be an alternate for Mike Stoker. And from that moment on, I have been extremely busy.
I always tell young people, but I've found out in the last few years it's true of people of all ages, when they say, well, I want to do something, I want to get a job, what do I do? Volunteer. Raise your hand and say, I want to, and do anything. Right. In my life, it led me to driving car for a leader of the House, for 3 or 4 Senate candidates, for gubernatorial candidates when I was a young Republican in my 20s. And so, volunteer.
Right. So yeah, and then what happened was, it wasn't long after I became an alternate that an opening came to be a regular member. I was appointed, and then immediately appointed as secretary.
Did I vote for you for those?
Yeah, you
all
did.
Those things.
You did. and I was secretary for quite a long time, from 2014 all the way up until 2019 when I took over as chair.
Yeah, we don't want to we may spend time on this because it's important. The Republican Central Committee is a constitutional legal body in state law. Each county has one. Mm-hmm. Each party that's qualified has one. You have to stand for, it's almost like being elected to city council. Mm-hmm. You have to stand for the office in the presidential election year. Mm-hmm. You have to go out and gather signatures, mm-hmm. and then you're on the ballot.
Right.
Did I describe it accurately?
Perfectly.
Okay, because we
and
have.
And then whoever gets the most votes, the top 5 members or 6 members, whichever supervisor district you're in, are those are the regular members of our committee. So people don't seem to understand that being on the Central Committee, you are an elected position, either elected or appointed. If a seat goes unfilled, then you appoint it after the election. They get appointed by the caucus that they're in.
The old wonderful son, but the old pain in the tush, Tom Cole, decided that he wanted to be chairman of the Central Committee about a year and a half ago and oust you. And he wasn't a registered Republican. We aren't even sure he was registered to vote in this county. And he didn't understand how you become chairman. Yes. You don't run for chairman.
No.
You get elected, and then the
committee decides.
Yeah.
They decide
on all the offices.
On all the offices, right?
Yeah, they've been foolish enough to keep me as a vice chair
for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we need your
or maybe
expertise.
They do that to keep me from ever becoming chair. Anyway.
Yeah, because I've served a number of chairs before I became a chair. Yeah. So I was Greg Gandrud's secretary, I was Christine Mollenkoff's secretary, I was Dale Francisco's secretary, and I also worked for Tom Woodrow. And it was when Tom resigned.
Now, that's interesting. Let me tell the profile of those 4 people. Mm-hmm. One was an attorney in Santa Maria, mm-hmm. a woman. One was a gay patriot accountant, businessman in Carpinteria. Mm-hmm. Let me think who one was a city councilman in Santa Barbara, mm-hmm. and who was the 4th? Oh, and Tom Winthrop was a head of the Taxpayers Association.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and he's in Buellton.
He's in Buellton, yes.
Yeah, so it's diversity.
It was great being the secretary. I learned a lot, and working with the various chair people, I learned a lot too. So I felt ready when I was asked to be the chair. When Tom asked me to take over in 2019, I felt ready. And one of the things that I did, probably different than the rest of the chairs, is I hired a political consultant to help us with our messaging and to help us to be able to use our sparse resources in the most effective manner possible. Yeah, and that's worked out really well.
All of our money comes from donations.
Donations, yes.
So today, and we may have time to talk about the general politics again, but we're going to talk about the candidates that mm-hmm. this legal body, the Republican Central Committee of Santa Barbara, has endorsed. And that endorsement will play out in a variety of ways. So tell us, who's this guy for governor? I know he wasn't my candidate in the primary.
Well, let me start with something a little different.
Okay.
The Ed had an article, or had an op-ed in their on their online paper about a week ago that said, is the Santa Barbara GOP okay? Is the Santa Barbara GOP okay?
Who is Ed Hat? I've never heard of him.
Ed Hat is another online news source, and the questions they were asking is, they were saying that we seem a little unhinged. They say that our presence doesn't seem to be very effective, and they were so impressed with the Democratic Party because they were having a picnic and they were talking about very, very mundane things and not about issues involving parents or involving schools or involving our water shortages or electric shortage. So that they were asking, is the Republican Party okay? And I'm here tonight to tell you that the Republican Party in California is more than okay. For the first time, I don't know how many years it's been that we have had Republicans to have a real choice in California. So at the top of the ticket, we have Brian Dahl, Senator Brian Dahl. He's already served as a state senator. He's a farmer and a businessman. He's running against Gavin Newsom for governor.
Just north of Sacramento is where he...
Yeah. I don't know the exact location, but it's north of Sacramento. Then we have for our lieutenant governor, our candidate is Angela Underwood Jacobs. She's from the Oakland area. She is the sister of, if you remember a few years ago, there was a policeman who was shot during the riots of Oakland.
Yeah.
He was shot and killed by rioters. And so she has a strong respect for police, a strong commitment to keep California safe. She wants the cities of areas like San Francisco, Los Angeles, to be able to have safe streets again, and Oakland particularly to have safe streets again.
If I recall, he was killed by somebody in the official BLM organization, not people who are for Black Lives Matter, but in the ultra crazy criminal BLM.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact story, but it was David Underwood. He was the policeman who was killed on duty by a protester. So then we have for controller, we have Lonnie Chen. Lonnie Chen's been endorsed by the LA Times. He actually won his primary. That's a first for a Republican in decades. He is a graduate of Stanford. He's a very intelligent man.
Wait, you said he won his primary.
He won his primary in the sense
top
that
two. You mean
top
he was
two.
top?
He was top.
Okay.
And he was top by a lot of votes. I want to say it was like $500,000 votes.
In fact, it kind of came in almost that there would have been two Republicans.
Almost.
Yeah.
But it's like his message, and we've had him at our central committee, his message is that he wants to audit the files of California. He wants to make sure that the taxpayer money is going in the direction that it's supposed to go. If you recall, on the recall effort of Gavin Newsom, there was millions of dollars that disappeared of the PEE money, the money that was sent to help people during the COVID shutdowns and lockdowns. There were people in prison getting welfare checks or unemployment checks, and people who were unemployed didn't get anything.
Yeah.
So he wants to be able to audit the books of California.
Something like $30 billion in unemployment disappeared in those 2 years.
Where did it go? So he is willing to audit any school district, county government that cannot balance its budget and does not know where the funds have gone. He wants to make sure that the tax revenue being gathered by our legislature and by the government is being spent properly. And believe me, they are flooded with money from the gas prices, the gas taxes, the property values, the property taxes. There's a lot of money that's gone into big surplus of money that's gone into Sacramento, and they're not using it to pay down their debts. They're just using it to come up with new programs.
Yeah, part of that that I like to remind people is under a constitutional amendment passed by the people, half of all revenue has to go to schools. So all of a sudden, the schools, which there aren't many people think they're doing public schools are doing a great job.
Right.
They're getting a windfall of like $20 billion.
Well, and you wonder how they're going to use the money.
Yeah, that's what he'll check.
Right. So that's Lonnie Chen. We really are hopeful that he's going to win his election. It would make such a big difference. Just that one seat would make a difference. Then we have Treasurer Jack Guerra. What an interesting candidate he is. He was, I'm not sure if he was born in Mexico City or if his family comes from Mexico City, but he is down in the Orange County area. He's in a very, very blue district, and yet he won as a supervisor in that district. And he has a accounting background, finance background, and he's a very charismatic individual. And he's running because he wants, again, to bring balanced, common sense government back to California.
Well, you're confusing me, and I'm sure Ed Hat would really be confused. You're talking about this all-white Trumpite party, an Oriental, Hispanic, with maybe born
a mixed race. Angela Underwood is mixed. I don't know what her ethnicity is, but it's definitely a mixed.
Yeah, she's part African American.
Right. Yeah, we have a very diverse group of people running for office. We also have Nathan Hochman won in the primary to be Attorney General, a very competent prosecutor. He wants to keep people in jail, the people that need to be in jail, I should say. He thinks that he wants to make sure the DAs in all the counties are doing their jobs, that they are like with Gascon up in San Francisco. He was recalled because he was letting out criminals on the streets of San Francisco. That it's not safe to park your car up in San Francisco because there's been so many thefts, crimes and thefts. And if the value of the and correct me if I'm wrong on the amounts, if the value of the crime was like $900, nobody was even arrested. So you had people that with the what's it called, the grab and smash and grab, going into the stores of San Francisco, no one being charged. And Nathan Hochman wants to bring back law and order to all of the around California, and that people who should be in jail need to stay in jail and not be let out in the streets to do more crimes.
Yeah.
So then we have Peter Coe. He's running for the State Board of Equalization. Very competent person. He's a businessman.
That is a very important seat that almost nobody knows about, and it's nonpartisan. And he spoke to us, and we've endorsed him. That his district covers on this side of the Central Coast Mountains, from the Oregon border to Ventura.
Yeah,
there's only 5 of these people, and they're 2 are for office this time, and then 3 in 2 years. And he is out working like heck. We've had editorials in the paper by him, and he explains what the office is.
Right.
And it, like the controller, it audits and the tax income for local government and that tax returns for businesses. If somebody complains, this is the body that goes over it, and they have a staff to make sure that what's going on is appropriate.
Yeah, no, it's and then we have Mark Moisier, who's he's a fantastic attorney. He's on the ballot twice, once for the partial term for U.S. Senate and for the full term. He's running against Alex Padilla.
Yeah.
And Mark is a constitutional attorney. He's handled a lot of cases and taken them up to I think 7 in this last year. I'm not sure if it's the last year, but the last couple of years, he's taken 7 all the way to the Supreme Court, fighting for people's rights and liberty.
And for people to understand the reason that's happening, a 2-year term and a 6-year term, is those were the seats held by Kamala.
Oh, Kamala Harris,
yeah,
correct,
and
that's
so
right.
when she became vice president, the governor appointed the guy who's...
Alex Padilla,
yeah.
yes. So Mark is a very competent person, very competent man. He's a great attorney. and he's out of San Francisco and works in the office with Harmeet Dillon.
And he's our kind of civil rights attorney.
Yes, he's a civil rights attorney.
He's protecting the civil rights of all citizens, not just the ACLU citizens.
Right, for everybody. And then you also have Dr. Brad Allen, who's running for seat 24th against Salud Carbajal for the 24th Congress. And Dr. Allen is he's a brilliant man. He's a pediatrician, cardiac surgery. His specialty, he's retired now, but his specialty was heart surgery on infants and newborns and preemies. So he can tell the story of how he put back together a little preemie who was 21 weeks old, was able to fix the heart valves that were problematic, and that little baby is now 23 and a grown man in very good shape. Yeah. So his specialty was heart surgery.
Yeah, I when I first met him said, well, how does being a good surgeon help you in government? He said, well, besides the humanity, I set up nursing and training in 5 national hospitals, University of Texas, Chicago, one in New Jersey. So I was training and building a staff of 20 or 30 people that I could walk away from. So he has administrative experience.
Yeah, and he calls himself a problem solver, where he can look at a situation and he's able to put the pieces together to problem solve. And he feels that he can get to Congress, it would make a big difference for our area, because he'd be number one, he'd be able to help direct money back to our area, and he'd be in a position of being able to not just be a stamp of approval from Kevin McCarthy, but that he would be somebody who would be a voice for our Central Coast.
And I wish, because we got a new assembly district in reapportionment, one with no incumbent. Our incumbent assembly people were from San Luis County or Ventura County, and I just wish we could find. Did we find somebody to run for that office?
Yeah. So Mike Stoker is
Mike Stoker.
Mike Stoker. He's a local attorney. He has had a wealth of experience and political experience. He was supervisor in North County for, I believe, 2 or 3 terms. Correct?
2 terms.
2 terms, and then he was also supervisor in District 2 for
2 years, but that
for 2
was
years.
when he was before he went north.
Before he went north, and he has done a tremendous amount in the past to help the Latino families and the people working in the fields, making sure they had medical clinics, things like that.
Yeah, he was for 8 years the chairman of the Agricultural Labor Relations Board under Governor Wilson. He was senator, presidential candidate, but he was our governor.
Right. And the other thing about Mike, he's really strong on police and not defunding the police. As you know, Greg Hart tried to defund our local sheriff department of millions of dollars.
He's the Democrat who's once, I lose track. He was a staffer for somebody, a city council member, supervisor, chairman of the Board of Supervisors during the lockdown.
Right.
And so he's...
And raised taxes 4,000 times. I just learned this recently. During his tenure as voted for raises in taxes when he was on city council and when he was on supervisor, and 4,000 times he's raised the taxes of our community.
16, 20 years of being a career politician, you have a lot of opportunity to either be for or against taxes, and he couldn't find a tax he didn't like.
And Greg Hart is a nice guy. He seems like but he's a very polished politician, and he will tell people what they want to hear. But when he gets up to Sacramento, all these crazy bills that you've seen coming through Sacramento is because our legislature is not balanced. We are dominated by the Democrats. The Democrats are in control of every aspect of government in California in terms of the statewide offices.
Now they get that way because they have what's called a supermajority. In other words, they have 66% of the elected state senators and 66% of the elected assemblymen. In fact, they got up to 70%, but they're back down to where like this one seat in the Senate with Stoker could knock that out and make
In the
them.
assembly. Have to pay attention.
Yeah, and Mike is the kind of guy, I heard him in his speech, he says, I'll try to get compromises like I did as a supervisor. I'll present legislation and get the moderate Democrats to come on board. And if the governor and the leftists kill it, I'll take it to the people in an initiative. He's willing to fight with and for the people of California.
And you know, what we want as Republicans, we want common sense government. We don't want crazy rules and regulations coming out of Sacramento that are taking away our rights, taking away our freedoms. Right now, there's a bill on the table regarding the private water wells, that the farmers are going to have to pay for the water that their wells give on their land. Unheard of. And they're going to be taxed according to how many gallons they're taking out of that. Now, it's just, there are so many rules and regulations that Sacramento has come up with. For example, the whole pronoun thing. They're wanting the kids to be able for kids not to learn about he and she anymore, getting rid of he and she and calling everybody it and they. It's like there's just a lot of crazy regulations.
Yeah.
And the reason it is because we don't have a balanced government.
I've realized after years in politics that we're now in an era where it's maybe as little as a 1%, but definitely the less than 5% are dictating our policies, like transgender education and transgender even prescription and operations on people under 18.
Having vaccines without parent permission, being able to have procedures done without parents' permission. This is craziness, and the reason the craziness and this woke agenda has taken off and is entrenched our schools, and people need to understand, Republicans are not against sex education. We're against grooming little kids to be taking advantage of pedophiles and to be grooming them for all kinds of sexual activity that is inappropriate for their age.
You mean child love by a 40-year-old person isn't good?
And it's not that we're intolerant of different people, but different life choices. But we want the parent to have a voice in the schools. Parents are raising their children, not the schools, and we need to make sure that we get back to basics. Reading, writing, and arithmetic is what parents want for their kids from the schools.
But those drag shows in junior high school are so great.
The thing about it is that, do you think that our kids coming out of California, they have to compete for college and for jobs with people coming out of other parts of our country, not to mention other parts of the world? Do you think in China they're being taught that they have a choice if they want to be a boy or a girl? Do you think they're even wasting any time on that? No, they are producing so many engineers in China, so many technicians, people with real skill sets, and those are the people that our kids are competing with on a worldwide basis. Now, America still has more inventions and more entrepreneurship than they do in China.
Oh yeah.
However,
patents. We have patents.
If you take away the training, the education that the kids have, I mean, our schools are failing our kids. 60% of them are not on track for reading, writing, and arithmetic, which brings me down to our next group of candidates. So our Republican Party have made a real effort to we're calling it a parent revolt. And we want to get parents empowered to be able to go to their school boards or to serve on these school boards, to come up and make decisions that will impact all of the kids in a positive manner, and to give parents the voice on these school boards, because often their voice has been trampled. In fact, I read an article where in some states they are going after the parents who are protesting some of these woke programs that are being pushed onto their children and by the school districts. And I'm a big advocate for public education, but it needs to be quality public education.
Didn't you even teach in other
I did.
life?
I used to teach the GATE classes for the Galena Unified for about 10 years. It was a part-time job I had when I was raising my own kids. And when I look at what's happening to the gap just increases in our school district, and it all comes down to, it's not the teachers, it's the way the administration is being managed. These school boards have tremendous ability to be able to decide on what curriculum is being taught and how the money of the LCAP funds are being spent, rather than bucketing money like Santa Barbara Unified is well known for, bucketing money to these local nonprofits rather than putting it into the classroom where the kids are. For example, take COM. COM is getting $600,000 a year from Santa Barbara Unified. And that's all from LCAP funding. And that money could go back into the classroom to help the teachers to work with kids who have fallen behind, who are new to the country. We have a lot of new kids to the country with all the flood coming in across the border. And these kids need to be able to be caught up. They can't do it in a classroom of 25, 30 kids, but you put them in a one-on-one situation, small group setting, they're going to prosper and they're going to learn. And that's what we need to get back to.
If you folks, if you think that the abuses of parents only happen in other places, Santa Barbara Unified School District, I was sitting there with other people when two parents, husband and wife, got up for their 3 minutes to ask why nothing had been done about their son who had been molested and partied, tried to be recruited by a teacher in advanced classes, and why nothing had been done. And they had written the school board and the principal for, it had been 45 days or something, and then the abuse that the hired attorney by the school board got up, and he was into his 5th minute when I started the crowd yelling, "Shut up." He was abusing the parents, and the wife was crying. Strangely enough, within a week, the molestation was reported to the police department. Only 2 months too late under the state law.
And it's just, and also security issues. The school board here in Santa Barbara just recently canceled the contract for the sheriff that's on San Marcos's campus, making San Marcos without a policeman presence being on their school campus.
Right after the shooting in Texas?
Yeah, right after the shooting in Texas.
The
current board said, we had 800 students sign a petition. They did not want the resource officer to be on campus. My question to them is, how many parents did you ask about wanting that resource officer on campus?
Yeah, you're asking a 14-year-old, maybe gangbanger, do you want a policeman walking around?
But the truth of the matter is that resource officer is often the first place that a victim goes to, the first person they talk to if something bad has happened to them on campus. So it is absolutely unconscionable that our local school board denied the contract with the sheriff department, and on San Marcos High School, one of the largest high schools in our area, does not have a resource officer. They still have one at Santa Barbara, and they still have one at DP, but they were arguing about whether the person should be wearing a uniform or not. And yeah, you want him to wear a uniform, you want him to pack his gun, you want people to know of that person, that man or woman's presence on the campus.
Our police chief, who we've known, who just retired, our sheriff doesn't have poorly trained officers like they had in Texas. If there's gunfire, that resource officer will run to the gunfire. He will risk his life to put down someone shooting a student or a parent or a teacher.
I think it's even more important than that is that it in itself is a huge deterrent to anybody walking on campus with a gun. So I feel nervous for the kids at San Marcos High School right now, and that's why I say, did the school board ask the parents what they thought about removing the resource officer from the campus? They did not. They only took a petition from students. So, and that leads me to the next group of candidates. So we've been working hard throughout the county to get quality people to run for office. So running for Santa Barbara Unified in TA1 is a grandma. Her name is Effie Benales. She's just retired, 25 years of service.
Last name again?
Benales.
Benales.
She is Effigina Benales. She goes by Effie. She's worked as a teacher's aide and as a school secretary.
Yeah.
And she has worked in 7 or 8 of the schools that are in the district of Santa Barbara Unified, the elementary as well as the junior high and high school.
Now these are by district, right?
Yeah, this is a trustee District 1, and it's the seat that Kate Ford had. And what happened...
You mean Kate Ford, whatever you say, I'll vote for?
Well, Kate Ford decided not to run. She's done with her service to the public school district. So Effie decided she would throw her hat in the ring. She has a lot of compassion for the students because she said over the years she's seen this deterioration going on. Not the teacher's fault, but this deterioration of the academics of the school and the choices the students have.
What's the other office for the Santa Barbara Unified?
It's a TA District 4, and that's being, our candidate is Phoebe Manzer. She's a small businesswoman from downtown Goleta, and she is running against Rose Munoz. She decided to step in the race last minute because she feels strongly that our kids are not coming out of the high school prepared for any kind of college, whether it be city college or university, and that they're not even prepared for jobs, basic jobs, because they're not getting the skills they need from the schools.
That's Santa Barbara Unified.
Right.
On the South Coast, we have some smaller school districts, Carpinteria. And,
yes, we have one of our. So overall, I mean, when someone asks the question, is the local GOP okay? I want you to know there were 99 seats that were open countywide, and we recruited 81 candidates to run. Now, some of them were incumbents, but some of them are brand new. And I'm happy to say, Jim, that already 42 of those candidates went unopposed. So they are automatically serving on school boards, sanitation district, water district.
Red Hat told us the Democratic Party, I don't want to criticize them because they might wake up. You mean we caught them flat-footed and got 42 people elected because no opposition was put up?
No opposition, exactly. 42. And so now on the ballot,
now I'm beginning to feel sorry for the.
Well, don't they? I mean, they have won certain areas where we've dropped the ball a little bit. They've won in areas that we've dropped the ball. We have a write-in candidate for city council down in Carpinteria. She decided last day to file, and even though we got to 23 signatures, they weren't enough because several of them were denied. One was signed by a blind man who didn't put an X. He had his POA, his power of attorney, signed for him, and that signature got denied. So she's not going to make it onto the ballot, but she'll be a write-in candidate, Patty Boyd, for the Carpinteria City Council for District 1.
And other school boards, where there's...
They walked into seats. We had a couple in Carpinteria. We have a couple in Santa Ynez.
They've been elected already,
brand new.
Because Red Hat's boys didn't get a candidate, yeah.
Right, and then and also in other school districts in the North County, we have people that are walking, but we also have some races. So where we have races, we have some quality candidates running. We have the Goleta race. We have for Goleta Unified, we have Carolyn Abate running against Richard Mayer, who I was actually surprised he pulled papers again because he's been on that board when my kids, who are now in their mid to late 30s, were in kindergarten and in elementary school.
But he has no responsibility for what's happened in education. Anyway,
else? So that is that's Carolyn Bates running against him. We also have Christy Lozano. She's running the seat that she's running for is the one that Louis Ray Martin gave up. So there's no incumbent there, but there's a couple other Democrats that are running against her. And then we have going north, we have a race in San Ynez. We have Chris Johnson running for a district, I think it's district, he's running for the short-term at-large district. It will turn into District 5 for San Ynez Unified. And he's running against 2 Democrats for their seat. And then he has, we have Sherry Noble, and she is a longtime resident of the Valley, a retired teacher. And she's also running against a Democrat up in the Valley.
I want to go back to San Ynez Unified School District.
Yes.
Quite a controversy for those who were watching education over the last 5 or 6 years. A plastic surgeon, Dr. Bakey, was elected, and there were 4 non-conservatives and a superintendent, and they were so abusive. They reprimanded him. They wouldn't allow him to speak. It was horrible.
And do you know what he did? So what he did was he was given a video of an event that happened in a classroom where the teacher was blasting the conservative politics and denigrating the candidates, and not just denigrating the candidate, but also denigrated the students that supported that candidate. Actually took a student, had them sit in the classroom. I could have this. It's been a while, but the teacher was not teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic or history.
Now that was when that school board was at large.
Right.
And they just went to districts.
Right.
4 districts and 1 at large.
Right.
And I don't know what Red Hats people did, but or Democrats, but
2 of the candidates are unopposed.
Yeah.
Brand new candidates are unopposed getting on the school board.
Yeah. By the way, Dr. Bakey moved his practice to Texas, and that school board seemed to appoint a more moderate person that they would let talk. So now we have 2 new members, and the moderate person out of 5, and the open seat, the 5th seat, is contested by a very, very
liberal, woke agenda person.
Yeah,
right.
Well, and by someone we support, a gentleman, what's his name?
Well, I'm not
for
sure.
the open seat.
Oh, Chris Johnson, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Johnson. Yeah,
Okay.
He's actually been a football coach for many years at San Ynez High School. He runs his own small business in the Valley. But the point of the matter is that before November, we already have 42 people who have either been incumbents, or brand new people who are in their seats without any opposition.
And we've overturned a couple of school boards. Now, we start back in the South Coast, and we had a strange thing. We're talking about the City College Board, which runs all the way through the county, and there was a seat open, contested, and we didn't have anyone, and Mike Stoker's wife, who had told him, you have to run if you're going to change things, she filed for it. For the City College Board.
Yeah, trustee area number 1, Debbie Stoker's running for the Santa Barbara City College seat.
So a lot of
Mike and Debbie are both in the on the November ballot.
A lot of voters will be able to vote for Stoker twice without breaking the law.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's very exciting.
And let's continue with the City College Board. What other offices are open, and the nature of those candidates?
Okay, we have Sharon Salvador Chicata. I know that she came to us through her candidacy came through us through some of our recruiters. She also wants to make sure that the City College remains the top-notch institution, that it gets back to teaching economics and basic reading, writing, and arithmetic, and preparing preparing the kids to go on either to their profession or to go on to university.
So there's only 2 city college board up this time?
That we have candidates in. I don't believe we had, I think there's just the 2, yeah.
Now let's go to the miracle of miracles. The number of Latinos, they want that because Hispanics a nationwide title because of Puerto Ricans and Cubans and Mexicans, but here they're Latinos. They're mainly of Mexican heritage.
So back in February, we began. There's been a national attention. In fact, there's been 1 million Latinos nationwide that have become Republicans, and we realized, the Republican Party realized, that we need to have an outreach special for Latinos, and we started our own little pilot project right here in our own county.
Raise money just for that.
Just for that. And that the
and not a lot of money, folks. We're talking about $25,000.
Yeah, in that neighborhood. And so we have 4 Latino candidates that we are sponsoring, our Latino leaders. Effie Bonales is one of them, and like I told you, she's quite an amazing person.
She's down here.
She's in South County. Yeah, she's running for TA Santa Barbara Unified School District. In North County, we have Ray Acosta. He's running for the Santa Maria Joint Union High School District, and we have Gabriel Morales, who's running for the county seat, District Number 5. And if
County Board of Education,
County Board of Education,
the 7
seat.
county,
Yes,
right now is 5-2.
right.
Okay.
Right now it's 5-2, and we so for Gabriel, he's really been the leader of this particular project.
And he's running for
the County Education Board.
So we've got 2 Hispanic, pardon me, my Latino friends. 2 Latino candidates
in Santa Maria.
And it's for the countywide Board of Education.
1 for countywide and 1 for the Santa Maria Joint Union School District. Yeah. And then we have another candidate, Ricky Lara, who is running for the Santa Maria Bonita School District. But and then the 4th Latino candidate is Art Mercado, who's running for City Council in Buellton. And he's been on the Planning Commission for 5 or 6 years. And he's a staunch conservative. He's a common sense businessman that he wants to continue to see Buellton prosper and grow. And he understands the issues in Buellton better than most people because he's served on the Planning Commission for so many years.
And that's 1 seat. Mayor?
The mayor is our mayor candidate is David King. And he's a former city councilman.
And then we have another city council.
And the other city council candidate is Tom Woodrow, who's the president of the Taxpayers Association.
Right.
And a longtime resident of Buellton, has 4 kids. And we're very hopeful about his campaign as well.
Yeah.
But overall, Jim, what we have tried to do, our goal, our committee's goal, was to give our people a choice. So people have to realize that they have a real choice in this November election. If you are happy with the crazy gas prices that we pay, if you're happy with the crazy taxes we have to pay, then vote for the status quo. All the regulations. I know that to get permits to remodel your house can often take 2 or 3 years to get the permits. So if you want things to continue escalating, I'm sure in your viewership, many of their friends have left California because it's just gotten too expensive to do business, to buy houses.
We were at some sort of function, I can't remember what it was, and maybe it was Supervisor Nelson said, if you haven't had someone you know leave the state, raise your hand. And people, and he said, no, haven't had. In other words, all of you have had somebody leave.
Who's left. Yeah, in our family,
yeah.
We've had 2 leave this last month. Young people leaving because they've decided they've had it. They're tired of the crime. They're tired of the taxes, and they're tired of how poorly our schools are performing. So they're moving their kids and their families to Wyoming. We have people moving to Colorado, moving to Texas, moving to Florida. So, as you know, California lost a seat in Congress this year, Jim, and that's because so many people packed their bags and left California. So I want to remind everybody, the Republican Party is the party of common sense. Bringing our party back to where we can no longer have the supermajority in our legislature, it will immediately stop all of the crazy legislation that's been going on and the curriculum choices being made at the state level. You'll have checks and balances back in government again. Gavin Newsom will become a much different governor if he's left with a legislature that is dominant with Republicans in it. And I'm hoping actually that Brian Dolly, who is a very competent person, will be able to beat Gavin Newsom in the upcoming race.
We've left out one area and two cities, really. Solvang.
Oh, in Solvang, we have
the mayor.
We have the mayor, Mark Infante. I don't believe he had a challenger, so I think he's on the ballot as the only candidate. We have Robert Clark. He's running for city council. He's already served one term as city council, possibly two. So he's going to be going into his third term. We have David Brown, a brand new candidate in the newly formed District 3, and he's running for that city council, another conservative.
Now, we have a bright spot for the future where we have two city council members, and I'll comment on the candidate. Lompoc.
Yeah, so we have up in Lompoc, we have Jim Mosby running for mayor. He's run for this office before, did not win last time, but it was a close race. And he thinks that with all the mistakes that Janelle Osborne has made, the Dems candidates have made, that he'll have a really good chance to win this time. We have Victor Vega and
another Hispanic
and Dirk Starbuck, who both look like they have no opponent who filed against them. So they'll be on the ballot still because it's a city council race, but they will in November be walking into their seats.
I have to tell you about Jim Mosby. I've, in my years in politics with senators and assemblymen and in business, when Jim Mosby was a city council member, I met him. And I've met 100 people like that on school boards and city councils, and they get their agenda, and like the people of Santa Barbara City Council, I don't think they even read it. They just do whatever the bureaucrats tell them to do. I went in one day, and he was getting ready for the city council, and he had all these papers out, and he said, "I'm getting ready for the city council meeting, and I've already spent 100 hours." And he said, "Because I want to know what every sergeant in the police department is doing and how they're being treated. Mm-hmm. I want to know everything about the budget. I want to know when people say there's a pothole, who in public works I can talk to." Mm-hmm. Well, he'll be a blessing coming back now instead of just a city council member as mayor.
Yeah, it'll be great. So that race is going on. And then we have where we don't have candidates was Guadalupe. Kind of missed that opportunity there. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. And then in Goleta, we have you have Democrats only on the ballot, but we have some Democrats that are running that are more moderate, common sense oriented Democrats. So we actively decided not to run candidates against those two candidates because we do want them to win. Yeah. They would be a better choice for the city of Goleta than the alternatives.
Yeah. Our endorsements, again, we talked about the nature.
So it's a recommendation.
Yeah, our endorsements, though, we told about the nature of the Republican Central Committee. We can't endorse Democrats or Green Party.
We can't.
But we can say, gee, there's no Republican running, and I sure like, if I had to vote, I would
vote for those candidates. Yeah, in fact, on our guide going out to the public, which we're working on raising money right now to get voter guides in the hands, our plan is to have voter guides in the hands of our constituents right before the ballots
We've
arrive.
got 3 minutes. Tell the people what we need to do to get those done. And
Oh yeah, okay, so if we only have 3 minutes, basically it's we want our constituents to vote early, sign up for ballot tracking, and we're on the track to raise money to get our voter guides in everybody's hands right before the ballots drop. We're going to have our propositions, the judges, anything that's on the ballot. It'll be a complete voter guide. Stick it on your refrigerator and go ahead and mark your ballot accordingly. And remember, folks, this is a golden opportunity. 2022 is when California dreams can come back to the state by getting the Democrats removed from office, getting Republicans in office, and start the journey of bringing California, giving the California dream, making it possible to attain that. We used to be the top in education. We used to have the top opportunities for businesses, but we
used to have water.
We used to have water, enough water for all. We used to feed all of America as well as much of the world, and we are being crippled by the woke agenda of the Democratic Party. And we need you to vote early, sign up for ballot tracking, and tell your friends who are no party preference and your Dems to join the Republican Party. And you can join just on our website, santabarbaragop.org, and you can sign up and re-register Republican.
Let me tell the voters why it's important to vote early and track your ballot. If you say, oh, I want to go in on election day, you may very well, there's not as much fraud as mistakes, but you may very well go in and find that you voted.
That somebody else voted
used your
name.
name, or some error was made, and your ballot is one of those provisionals that may not even get counted. If you do what Bobbi just said, vote early, track your ballot till the county tells you we've got it, then nobody can take your vote.
Yeah, so what happens on ballot tracking is the county will actually email you that they've received and processed your vote, either email or text, whichever you sign up for. So you can go to our website to sign up for ballot tracking, or go onto the county elections own
Don't
office.
misunderstand. They don't count your ballot. They get the ballots in and set them up for counting. And they acknowledge that they're there and they're ready to be counted at 8 o'clock on election day.
Yes. So let's hope to bring back the California dream, and let's get Republicans elected this November.
Yeah, and the way you do that is in partisan offices, you tell everybody to vote they are. And in nonpartisan office, you go to the refrigerator where Bobbi told you to put the recommendations and vote for those people.
Yeah. So I'm very hopeful,
You're
Jim.
good. I talk too much. My son's right. Shut up, Jim.